Somebody chopped to their insurance agent.
What do you want me to tell them? We're getting 5 more minutes there. Let them do it. Peaceful. Let them. Yeah, started there. Town all weekend, haven't you? You dressed up all weekend. Yeah. Yeah.
I wouldn't trade it for nothing. Well, I be tired and all that stuff, man, but I love those animals and stuff.
I got the disco lights on.
Come on down, the price is right.
Where the hell's the button on it?
They'll be back next week. That's my point. That's my point. Yeah, it should be.
It's a life event that whether it's your health, your addiction. I mean, I could just be on a snake, a poisonous snake, and the deductible on that's like some blessing. They just don't keep it right. That's not hard, thank you.
They run too fast. Start choking.
But I told them they need to talk to their insurance.
That's what I mean, exactly.
Before making.
Except this, but it doesn't allow for that.
Oh, the same.
And which filtration system is.
Notice how much they got done. All those things. You got like 3 rows across the bottom. Anytime, when you show up like 10 guys, whatever. Make sure we don't make a mistake. Those guys are like, and I'm on a road.
I now call the City of Creedmoor Board of Commissioners meeting work session to order. Going down the agenda, we have our call to order with our invocation. In our prayers, please keep our city minister, my son, in our prayers, and bring him back to us as soon as we can. And help us to make the best decisions that we can for the citizens of Creedmoor. This meeting. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Can we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Gleason.
Here.
Commissioner Moss.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilkins,
Present.
Commissioner Kuczynski,
Present.
Commissioner Way,
Present.
and Mayor Downey.
Present.
Thank you.
Approval of agenda. Is there anything we need to add, discuss?
I make a motion that we approve the agenda as is.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 5-0. The appointment of Chief Troy Willis to the position of interim city manager. I think that will be me. Can you come up to the front, please, sir?
Before we dive into this one, it's come to my attention that, Mike Turner, and kind of as a part of the city manager role, the city manager also serves as the deputy finance director, is that right? The budget officer. That was not something that this is my fault, I think, that I didn't roll that into the draft resolution, so I think what would make the most sense is if, a prospective motion might be to adopt the resolution subject to the amendment that we also make, Chief Willis the budget, the interim or acting budget officer pending Mr. Turner's return.
You have that, Robert? I make that motion.
There's been a motion to approve the resolution 2026R-01, a resolution for the appointment of Chief Troy Willis as interim city manager with the amended,
With the title, interim deputy finance director.
with the amendment of the deputy finance director. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Chief Willis, can you join us?
You're a certified sworn person.
He's certifiable, all right, that's what he is.
Here's a question. Who approved your budget now?
I, Senator Troy Willis, do solemnly swear that I will support and maintain the Constitution and laws of the United States and the Constitution and laws of North Carolina, not inconsistent therewith, that I will be alert and vigilant to enforce the criminal laws of this state, that I will not be influenced in any manner on account of personal bias or prejudice, and that I will faithfully and impartially execute the duties of my office as the interim city manager according to the best of my skills, abilities, and judgment, so help me God.
Can we call you Samuel now?
Mr. Mayor, I guess it's reasonable for us to expect that Chief Willis is going to be in Creedmoor at least 26 hours a day? Is that what we're thinking?
Yes, I
Yeah,
like
okay,
that.
gotcha.
I like
Just
that.
wanted to get that on the record. Thank you.
Well, I'm excited about that, and you have had one heck of a first week of trying to get it. Notice on Monday, or Tuesday, possibly Wednesday off by the city manager, and on Tuesday, told you we needed approximately 46 more weeks, and to take over the city. So on Wednesday, the Verizon service went out, down everywhere. On Thursday, a conversation about officially making me an interim city manager. On Friday, we found out the possibility of a snow event. All of that is accreditation review is
Quickly approaching. And then the snow event, which caused a decision on the Martin Luther King breakfast, and now another snow event, which might be next week. You have handled this situation and every situation admirably, without fail. With the help from other department heads and the super support of the staff, the city has flourished without a blip, and I'm very, very proud to make you interim city manager. Appreciate it.
Ms. Kathy Haslam is going to do an opioid settlement program. You want to have a presentation?
I know you have a lot on your plate, and I tried to cut it down, but before I get started, I just want to tell you what I distributed to you. We will be updating the substance treatment provider directory, but what I'm really excited about this directory, which our future directories will include, are digital treatment options for people, because we know that not everybody can physically get to a substance treatment provider, so there are now digital options available that in some cases are free. So it's just really important for people to be aware of that. So I'll have a supply at chief/manager/budget officer's office. The other really important little card that I want you all to be aware of, and we hope to put these in the dispensers that I'll be talking about in a moment. These are very important 24/7 phone numbers for people who are using drugs so that they use safely, they don't use alone. We are all about preventing deaths. That's what this opioid settlement is all about, abatement as well as prevention of deaths. So what's nice about this little card, it's very discreet. It can be fit into a pocket very nicely, hand it out to a friend who you know may be struggling or may have children who are struggling. So a wonderful resource in Spanish as well as English. And then I'll be talking about these dispensers that I wanted you all to have our little catalog of dispensers that we're making available through the opioid settlement program, and then a description of sort of my involvement in the scope of services with regard to these dispensers. So we are beginning to take orders, and if you would like one in the town hall, we can certainly do that. There is no cost for this. This is all being funded by the opioid settlement program. So let's see if I can do this. All righty. As far as background, it's kind of weird that these slides are kind of goofy. All right. So the opioid settlement program, the vast majority of the funds coming to the state come to counties and municipalities. Only 15% has been held on by the state for a variety of programs and then spent on Department of Justice or the NC Association of County Commissioners. The vast majority are coming to the local area. As I mentioned, the overarching goal is to prevent and reduce opioid overdoses. And we're thankful that in Granville County we don't have the number as in other areas. But it's important for you all to know that each county has to agree to this memorandum of agreement. And we do this every year, and it stipulates how we are to spend the funds, the sort of the regulations and rules that we have to abide by. The county has created a separate fund just for the opioid settlement. Funds that come to us trickle down every year. We don't get a lump sum. And this is essentially how it is delivered and the total amount that we'll be getting by 2039. This does not include the Sackler-Purdue Pharma litigation funds. I don't know how much that's going to be, but you can expect that $7.1 million to go up a little bit. I have no idea how much. So you can see it's kind of front-loaded So we are trying to be very judicious in how we use these funds, because they don't last forever. Even though $7 million sounds like a lot of money, it is over a span of 18 years. So very quickly to get started, things began to happen around 2018, 2019. The national settlement was finalized. The North Carolina Association for County Commissioners really took the lead on providing training to counties and municipalities. There was an initial group of members selected for the Granville County Opioid Advisory Committee, and some input was done throughout the county just to get some thoughts on how funds should be spent. The memorandum of agreement gives us 12 options for strategies, all evidence-based, 12 strategies in option A and 12 strategies in option B. Now, let's go over those a little bit more detail. So in option A, we have collaborative strategic planning, evidence-based addiction treatment, recovery support services, recovery housing support, employment-related services, early intervention programs, naloxone distribution, post-overdose response teams, syringe service programs, criminal justice diversion programs, addiction treatment for incarcerated persons, and reentry programs. These are the strategies that we're focusing or have been focusing on for the time being. These are all evidence-based. These are all supported by the state. They're in option B, and I'm not sure why the state did it this way. There are 12 strategies. 7 of those 12 are really referred to on option A, and the memorandum of agreement will say, if you're planning on doing one of those 7, use option A. So I'm not sure why. So the 5 strategies that are unique to option B are listed here. And as a preventionist, my hope is that we will eventually look to letter G, prevent misuse of opioids. Because currently, and we're just beginning to start collecting data around this, there's very little that's taught in schools to prevent substance use. There's very little outreach to parents. So there's a lot we can be doing to prevent opioid use. And to me, if we're really serious about trying to reduce opioid deaths, we need to address the demand for opioids. So that's all about prevention. So back, the first couple of steps is we expanded the Opioid Advisory Committee a little bit. We went out and got input, did some community meetings. In 2024, I was hired to be the opioid strategic plan program manager for the county, and we also put out an RFP, request for proposals, to use our funding. The advisory committee really has a wide range of representation, and we meet monthly now for about an hour and a half at the Expo Granville Center, Expo Center, and it's open to the public, but alas, we don't have meetings that are virtual. We don't have a virtual option, which I think would be nice to provide a more open forum, but we do send our meetings out, and I think I've got Mike Turner on my email list to receive information. But this gives you a list of some of the organizations that regularly attend. One of the first things that I did when I came on board to facilitate these meetings, I wanted to be sure we were all on the same page. So we developed a vision statement and a mission statement for the advisory committee. We're going to have to change that vision statement down to one sentence if we're going to pursue option B. That's just one of the exercises that we're going to need to do. But our mission statement, which is kind of hard to read in the slide, but it is all about the prevention and reduction of opioid use and reducing deaths. So the 3 strategies that initially were funded were collaborative strategic planning that provides the funding for my position, and I basically am the the go-between between the committee, the advisory committee, and the county commissioners, as well as community partners. I facilitate the advisory meetings and provide resources, do the reporting, making sure we're staying on track with adhering to the memorandum of agreement. The Granville Health System is also funded to provide a post-overdose response team, and this is just getting underway. The idea behind APPORT, which is the acronym for it, is to provide a service going out to people who EMS has assisted with an overdose, but connecting them to harm reduction supplies or learning to see if they need other resources that would be helpful to them, maybe getting them connected to a treatment provider. So it's that bridge service. So it's just another way of doing outreach and extension of community services. Then the third strategy has been starting in an induction program for the medication for opioid use disorder. The jail has always been really good about continuing medication for opioid use disorder, which abides by the law. That's an ADA regulation and law. But for those who've been arrested and assessed with an opioid use disorder but had not started treatment yet, it's never been a requirement. So we're trying to get this off the ground. This has been a little slow in going to launch. The contract with Southern Health Partners was delayed for several months. They're now in the process of finding medication assisted treatment nurse who would actually be responsible for the dosing and doing the assessments. I understand that someone has been made an offer, but that person still isn't on board yet. And this has been going on for over a year. So we're hoping that we can get this going real soon. This slide just simply shows that close to 50% of the people in the Granville jail during this time frame do in fact have a substance use disorder. So providing these services is really essential. Our hope is that we're going to reduce recidivism and get people connected to treatment, so they're actually going to be on a road to long-term recovery. This will show you that there has been a slight increase in the number of overdoses in Granville County. I don't have the numbers yet for 2025, but it's disconcerting that we're seeing this jump from 2023 to 2024. So there's definitely justification for the work that we're doing. So this past year, we sent out another set of proposals and funded the North Carolina Harm Reduction Coalition to provide a syringe service program. Kim McCann, who is their outreach worker, actually makes house calls and provides them with supplies, provides them with our treatment provider and our little business cards of resources. It is all about preventing of the spread of disease or the contraction of disease and saving lives. The other strategy that was funded is through Central Community Services for reentry. So connecting people who have been part of the MOUD program at the jail to community services. Dispensers. Thank you. We also, at the November meeting, the county commissioners approved two resolutions. One is for these dispensers that you have a copy of, that we have up to $25,000 to spend between now and June 30th, 2027, to be sure that there are dispensers in every town throughout the county. And the idea is we want a naloxone to be made easily accessible, easily available. That way we can reduce the overdose deaths and hopefully overdoses, period. The commissioners also approved a dispenser resolution with Blue Cross Blue Shield. We are hoping that we will have an outdoor dispenser outside of adult correction services in Oxford, So any time of day, people can help themselves. It's a temperature controlled, and we're hoping that that'll happen. The syringe service program, unfortunately, was rescinded. I guess a majority of commissioners had second thoughts about the services that were being provided through the syringe service program. And that has been reallocated to become a naloxone distribution-only strategy. The reality, unfortunately, is, though, sterile syringes is what people need to use drugs safely, and as we're doing a survey, that's the number one item that comes up over and over. Of course, we don't want people using drugs, but they've already made that decision. You know, people are using drugs, so we want them to use safely and then get into treatment when they're ready to do so. All right, so here are the dispensers that we're making available. These are in the little catalog, a variety of shapes and sizes. The Barney, the purple dispenser there, freestanding, comes in different sizes and can also include wound care kits, as well as naloxone. The two bottom ones are gravity fed. The one on the left is naloxone only. The other can be other kinds of supplies, wound care, chest strips, etc. But these have been the most popular that we have begun to order for Granville County. And this just gives you an idea of what our financial report looks like. This was for September. So every month we go through a review of how monies are spent. However, some of those accounts don't get updated, but on a quarterly basis, so we don't always have an actual amount at that particular time. So moving forward, we're in the process of collecting data, considering option B strategies, and that's going to take a while. Everything that the committee does is data-based, which is the way it ought to be. We want to be able to justify everything that we're doing in the use of opioid spending by what the data is telling us is really needed and really important. So I just had a conversation, a bunch of key informant interviews with Granville Public Schools social workers. I'm going to be meeting with parents who have lost a child to opioid. We'll be doing focus groups with people who are in treatment for opioid use. All of that information will guide how we decide to use opioid settlement money. We are making statewide, we're making progress. The number of overdose deaths is going down, which is excellent. The 25 data is still relatively preliminary, but it's looking better than it had been. And then just a few slides so people understand drugs don't discriminate, and stigma, quite frankly, is one of the reasons why people don't seek treatment. So whatever we can do as community members to talk to people and to be sure that language is appropriate and not stigmatizing, I think it's important to help people understand that a substance use disorder, whether it's alcohol, marijuana, opioids, it's a chronic brain disease. And these drugs will take over the brain, so the brain is not able to function properly. And it's important to understand that as a medical condition. It's also important to understand that people who are on an opioid treatment program may use methadone or buprenorphine. These are opioids, but these are medication. Just like when we are helping someone quit nicotine and we give somebody a patch, that's clean nicotine that we're giving somebody. It's still nicotine, but it's clean nicotine. Likewise, the methadone and buprenorphine helps address the craving, so people are not going to want the illicit drugs and the dangers of fentanyl that may come along with it. It's very possible that someone can stay on these drugs for the rest of their lives like any other chronic medication. And it's just really important that we get the message out that people are not losers, they're not morally deficient. These folks need compassion. And hopefully, as we get more naloxone available, more treatment options available to people, and more prevention to educate young people and parents about the harms that drugs do, we're going to eventually see a decrease in opioid use. So there you are. Any questions or comments? Thank you. Thank you so very much.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So, I understand that you have met with the chief of police and, a couple county commissioners down here and discussed the plan for our city. Chief, do you have any input that you'd like to put into this? Yes, microphone, buddy. State your name.
Not really. I would say that, I think over the years we've worked together and been in meetings together. While I think it is correct, some people, once they get to the point in their lives where they're actually using drugs, how do we help them get over that hump? Yes, we want to put everything into preventing things, but sometimes we fall short of that. So after they're already in that mode and already doing that, how do we help them? How do we help people? And I think that something that we all got to put our minds together and just wrap our mind around it, to try to help these people.
So, who makes sure that these, once these, like you called it Barney, are set up, who verifies that they're refilled and that they're not expired?
I'll be checking on those, probably on a monthly basis.
Because they do. I think these Narcan dispensers expire in 1 year.
No, it's usually towards.
I'm sorry?
The naloxone itself usually doesn't expire for 2 or 3 years.
Okay.
Depending upon the naloxone. But, the plan is that wherever there's a dispenser, it'll be my job to fill those dispensers, to check, to monitor them, to see how they're being used, and to refill them. And, just to, if there's vandalism, hopefully there won't be, but just to report back to the host, that
So, if you do see a large usage in a facility, would you report it, like in Creedmoor, would you report it to our chief if you've noticed? Okay, all right. As long as there's a partnership, that's the most important thing.
Absolutely. And it's required through the MOA that we're to attempt to try to collect basic data. So there will be a QR code sticker on these dispensers that will simply ask, totally anonymous, your zip code, your home zip code, your age, your gender. That's it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Haslett. Just a quick question. One of the things that kind of stuck in my mind, you talked about the digital access, I believe that's how you termed it at the beginning. I'm wondering, understanding that internet access sometimes is not quite as prevalent in our community as we'd like for it to be, but as you're going through your work, how are you anticipating for folks that want to access it digitally if they don't have it at home, where might they do that?
Yeah, in our current survey, we're hoping to complete 50 surveys of people who are using drugs that we're doing in partnership with the North Carolina Harm Reduction Coalition outreach worker in Granville County. And one of the questions we're asking is, do you have access to a cell phone, a working cell phone? Do you have access to internet? And everyone but maybe just a few have said no to the internet. But there's a library where they can access. And they've often said that the library would be a great place to have naloxone. So I'm hoping that we can make that happen. So that's a county commissioner decision, and we'll see.
Ms. Catherine, I have a couple questions.
Sure.
As far as substance abuse, because it's near and dear to my heart as well, because I've had people in my life with substance abuse issues. As far as after treatment, okay, so when we identify that these Noxolone dispensers are being used, what do we do from there? Is it a strategy for NA meetings? Is it a strategy for AA meetings? Do we have any group therapy that could go on as far as, I know Oxford has the old jail group as an AA meeting out there, but as far as like a NA meeting or AA meeting, what is the after? Once we identify the problem, what happens?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, which is why I'm hoping that we can put information like the provider treatment and the resource cards, but we're also doing an initiative with churches and houses of faith in Granville and Vance County. So we're hoping that more churches and places of worship will be open to hosting those kinds of programs and making them more available in our communities in Granville County.
Because I know they used to have those meetings around this area, but haven't seen any of those meetings going on in quite a few years. And I mean, I think that's really a grounding point for, hey, we have a problem. What are we going to do about this problem?
Yeah, I'm just beginning to do some Narcan training with churches, and as well as making the dispensers available there as well. So it is part of the conversation that we're having with
Cool. Let me know how I can help. All right. Commissioner Moss.
Mr. Mayor, this one's for you. I was just sitting here thinking as I was listening, this could be one of those perfect topics for one of your town hall meetings that we're going to be doing. Maybe you're already thinking of that. I'm sure you are. Yes, sir. But it just popped in my mind that would be, and we could have Kathy come and talk much more about this. It's like a great idea.
Definitely.
In fact, one of the requirements of the memorandum of agreement is to do an annual meeting. And I didn't have many out last year when I was going around the county in person to do in-person meetings. So I thought, all right, let's just do one huge Zoom meeting, because maybe people might be more comfortable on Zoom when we're talking about substance use, perhaps. I don't know. But I would love to be at your town hall to share the work that the Opioid Advisory Committee is doing.
Yes, ma'am. And last question. Yeah. I know Narcan, am I right or wrong? Does that have to be administered to the heart, or is it like a smell thing, or? So
there's primarily two different types of Narcan. Narcan, by the way, is the brand name. Naloxone is the generic name. Okay. So we primarily distribute the nasal spray. But there's also intermuscular, and we also have those as well. So there are pre-filled vials that those who are using injectable drugs may prefer to use an injectable naloxone. It is a nanosecond faster through the system, through the injectable, but most people are more comfortable with the nasal spray, and certainly regular community members are far more comfortable using the nasal spray.
Okay. So say one of these little kids walking the sidewalks, gets a hold of it. Is it a liability for them, or?
There's no adverse effect.
Good. Okay.
Absolutely
Got it.
Great question.
Got it. Got it. Cool. All right.
Thank you.
Thank
More
you so
questions?
much.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, Ms. Kathy. Moving right along. Water filter discussions. Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Madam City Clerk, would you put up the first image for me, please? Let me begin by asking a rhetorical question. Whom do you trust? I ask that because trust is built on demonstrated character, honesty, integrity, and reliability, coupled with empathy and consistency. I raise this question because after water itself, trust is, in my view, the second most important product Saguasa provides. Unfortunately, that trust has been lost. When people cannot trust what comes out of their taps, they cannot trust the institution responsible for delivering it. Restoring water quality must go hand in hand with restoring trust, because without trust, assurances alone are not enough. Customers cannot feel confident simply because the Saguasa board members say everything is fine. This loss of trust does not begin with the current Saguasa board, who I find to be respectful and caring individuals all. It started long before any of them were even seated. And while I acknowledge that significant actions are now underway, they are not sufficient to erase years of discontent and lived experience within this community. Trust, once lost, is difficult to regain. I want to trust, especially after the words of encouragement I heard at last Tuesday's Saguache meeting concerning two things. First, that the first of 5 water filter medias has been completed. I want to trust that after completing the other 4, we'll finally have clean water. But based on the difficulties from the first one the Assistant Executive Director Sumlin disclosed, I do not trust that the other 4 medias will be completed by year's end. I also want to trust and encourage a unidirectional flushing pilot program Saguache Board approved for the 444 homes in Golden Pond here in Creedmoor, which encompasses approximately 5.3 miles of water distribution. This program will help clean pipes throughout the system rather than simply moving the problem from one pipe to another. And while I'm encouraged for my constituents in Golden Pond, I'm left to ask the question, what about Pecan Hill? What about Paddington? What about Main Street? What about Lake Road, or Sotheby's, or those on NC 56? And because Mr. Sullivan said Golden Pond should be completed by the end of April, does that mean the rest of Creedmoor will not see this automated flushing system for years to come? There's a popular song by the singer Pink whose lyrics asks, what about all the times you said you had all the answers? What about us? What about all the plans that ended in disaster? What about us? What about trust? I ask this not as a criticism, as a plea for fairness, transparency, and urgency. In short words, nor pride in test results that merely meet current maximum compliance standards will not eliminate the doubt that many residents still carry about their water. It is not enough to say my water is fine simply because you're not personally experienced what others are. I am hopeful that what I share tonight will stir a sense of empathy in all of us, and that together we will take meaningful steps forward. My motion later on is about beginning that process, not just restoring water quality, but restoring confidence, dignity, and trust for our residents. That being said, I want to begin by clearly stating that I know there is not a single person on this board who does not want the very best for our constituents. I sincerely believe that every member of this board and everyone within Saguache generally desires to provide clean, clear, and healthy water to the people we serve. I recognize the work that has been done, the efforts that continue, and the commitments that exist. My comments tonight are not meant to question anyone's integrity, dedication, or intentions. However, I do believe it's important for us to be lovingly and honestly acknowledge the reality that our constituents are experiencing. The photos shown on that screen reflect water coming directly from the homes of Creedmoor residents, one of whom is present here tonight. These images are not meant to criticize, but to help us see what our community is seeing and living with each day. As I will shortly share the Emory University study, the presence of PFAS chemicals means that our water does not meet the standard for what most people understand to be truly clean water. Even with the sincere and valiant efforts of Saguache, that concern remains. And this is not a reflection of failure, but acknowledgement of a challenge that still needs to be addressed. I think where frustration arises from is our constituents is not from lack of appreciation for anyone's work, but from hearing the water described as safe, when their lived experience feels different. When water has a noticeable odor, when it's discolored, and when it contains PFAS chemicals, it becomes difficult for families to feel confident and at ease. Their concern is rooted in trust and in a desire to protect their health and their children's health. My intention in advocating for water filters is not to place blame, but to offer a practical and compassionate step forward. Filters are not an accusation, they're a layer of protection. They're not a rejection of anyone's efforts. They are an enforcement of our shared goal. They communicate to our community that we are listening, that we care, and that we're willing to take every reasonable measure to ensure their safety and peace of mind. This is truly about a partnership. It's not about it's about standing together with our residents. It's about acknowledging what we can do to improve while honoring what already has been done. My push for water filters comes from my respect for this board and the Saguasa board, for their compassion for our constituents. And it comes from a sincere desire to strengthen public confidence by showing that their concerns are met with thoughtful and proactive solutions. And I believe that the assertion that we can delay action on PFAS because the federal compliance deadline is years away fundamentally misunderstands public health and public responsibility. A deadline is not permission for inaction. It is the maximum time allowed for compliance. Residents have been ingesting PFAS for years, and continual exposure compounds risk over time. Delaying protective measures while studies continue is like telling someone diagnosed with cancer not to begin treatment because the disease is still in its early stages. No reasonable person would accept their logic. Public health demands risk reduction when harm is known and mitigation tools are available. While ongoing PFAS studies are appropriate and necessary, studies alone do not reduce exposure. Providing certified water filters that effectively remove PFAS is a practical and proven interim safeguard. Filters do not replace long-term remediation, but they do protect residents now. The claim that PFAS exists everywhere, including bottled water, is not a justification for inaction. It is an argument for mitigation. Public health policy has never required eliminating a contaminant everywhere before acting anywhere. By that logic, we would never regulate lead, asbestos, or secondhand smoke. Yes, PFAS does exist everywhere, but people don't ingest furniture, cookware, clothing, or cosmetics. They do ingest drinking water every day. Because PFAS are bioaccumulative, reducing exposure to tap, where intake is unavoidable and continuous, is one of the most effective ways to reduce overall risk, regardless of PFAS presence everywhere. Allowing continued PFAS exposure in drinking water simply because it may exist in other products undermines both public health principles and public trust. Immediate filtration complements ongoing studies and demonstrates responsible governance. Waiting years to act when preventive measures are readily available is not cautious leadership, it is avoidable neglect. Immediate filtration is a reasonable, cost-effective step that protects residents today while long-term solutions are pursued. PFAS are synthetic chemicals that persist in the environment and accumulate in the human body over time. Long-term exposure has been linked to serious health risks, including cancer, immune system suppression, and hormonal disruption. PFAS again may be present in consumer products, but drinking water is unique. It is ingested daily by every resident, without choice or avoidance. Children, seniors, and those medically vulnerable individuals are especially impacted. Certified water filters are a proven and immediate way to reduce PFAS exposure. They do not replace long-term treatment solutions, but they do provide essential protection now while studies and infrastructure improvements continue. Federal compliance deadlines are maximum timelines, not permission to delay action. Immediate filtration demonstrates responsible governance, protects public health, and helps restore trust with our residents. Some like to highlight our testing meets federal and state guidelines. And while testing may indicate compliance with current federal and state regulatory thresholds, such compliance does not eliminate human exposure to PFAS. Each instance of consumer results in continued exposure to these persistent chemicals. Furthermore, visual and sensual evidence confirms ongoing discoloration and periodic foul odor in the water supply, indicating unresolved water quality issues that extend beyond regulatory minimums. State and federal guidelines does not mean our water is truly safe. With every glass consumed, residents are still exposed to PFAS chemicals known to accumulate in the body. Again, at the same time, the continued discoloration and foul odor, clearly visible and noticeable, raise serious concerns about water quality. These are real issues that deserve more than a compliant-based response. Madam City Clerk, would you put up the Emory study, please? Thank you. This study was conducted and published on July 25th of 2025 in Atlanta, Georgia. Over 170 residents living in Rome and Calhoun, Georgia, participated in the Emory University study to test their blood for PFAS, also known as forever chemicals. This study is the first known effort to evaluate potential human exposure in the region following extensive Atlanta News First investigations. State regulators discovered elevated PFAS levels in North Georgia's drinking water nearly 10 years ago. The preliminary study was released in June and is still undergoing peer review. Its findings reveal what many residents feared, elevated levels of PFAS in their blood. Some participants had PFAS concentration high enough to warrant additional medical evaluations, according to guidelines set by the National Academy of Sciences. Just to be clear, the Safe Drinking Water Act, Title 42, U.S. Code 300, establishes a federal authority to regulate public drinking water systems and sets minimum national standards to protect public health. These standards represent a regulatory floor, not a ceiling. Compliance with the Act does not prohibit state or local governments from taking additional reasonable steps to protect residents from known or emerging water quality concerns. Likewise, North Carolina General Statute 160, Section 160, Chapter 174, grants cities and towns broad police powers to enact measures necessary to protect the health, safety, and welfare of their residents. This statute authorizes municipalities to act proactively when public health is at risk, even when another entity operates the water system, and even where minimum regulatory standards are technically met. Read together, these statutes make clear that federal drinking water standards do not exempt local action. Municipalities are authorized and expected to act to protect public health. Additional mitigating measures, including surveys, public outreach, and water filtration, are legally permissible and consistent with both federal and state law. In short, the Safe Drinking Water Act establishes minimal protections, while the North Carolina law especially empowers municipalities to go further when public health, trust, and safety are at stake. These statutes allow local governments to adopt and enforce regulations related to public health, safety, and welfare. It recognizes the connection between infrastructure capacity, environmental conditions, and public well-being. Water quality concerns fall squarely within this public health authority and support proactive local government action beyond minimal compliance. Taken together, these statutes grant clear legal authority to municipalities and water authorities, emphasizing public health and safety as a primary responsibility, and support continued testing, monitoring, and oversight of drinking water systems in North Carolina. There is no provision under federal law that prohibits a governing body from surveying its citizens regarding public health concerns or for advocating for protective measures that exceed minimum standards. Likewise, North Carolina law places no restriction on this governing body's ability to survey residents or to request that a public water authority provide point-of-use filtration to their residents. Accordingly, there is nothing in federal law or North Carolina statute that prevents this body from distributing a survey to our residents, nor is there anything that prohibits us from formally requesting that Saguasa purchase water filters for the benefit of our citizens. And any assertion to the contrary is not grounded in law. Now, let me anticipate some pushback that I've heard in the past and may hear tonight. Saying we have clean water on the website does not make the water clean in practice. Clean water is not defined by a slogan or cover page. It is defined by what comes out of the tap and what residents experience every day. First, the presence of PFAS in water directly contradicts the claim of clean water. PFAS, those forever chemicals, accumulate in the human body over time. And even if current levels meet regulatory standards, contamination does not disappear simply because it is labeled permissible. Exposure is cumulative and ingestion occurs daily. Second, to document this coloration you've seen up on that screen in foul orders shown in these photographs and reported by residents are physical evidence that cannot be explained away by marketing language. Water that is brown, smells unpleasant, or requires flushing before it can be used does not meet any reasonable person's understanding of clean, regardless of compliance paperwork. Finally, regulatory compliance is a minimal standard, not a guarantee of safety, quality, or public confidence. Utilities have both a legal and moral responsibility to provide water that is not only compliant on paper, but that is clear, odor-free, and trustworthy in reality. When the lived experience of residents conflicts with the website claim, the evidence in people's home must take precedence over words on a screen. And if by chance Saguasa refuses to purchase water filters for Creedmoor residents by arguing that federal mandates do not take effect until 2029 and may now be 2031, that position places regulatory timing above public health. The absence of a federal deadline today does not negate the reality that PFAS chemicals are now being ingested by our residents every single day. These chemicals are linked to a serious long-term health risk, and exposure accumulates over time. It does not pause until a mandate begins. Moreover, the presence of foul-smelling and discolored water is a separate and immediate quality issue that undermines public trust and raises additional health concerns. Again, meeting minimal federal, state, or state guidelines does not absolve Saguasa of its responsibility to provide water that is not only legally compliant, but also visibly clean, odor-free, and safe for consumption. Waiting until 2029 is not a neutral decision. It is an active choice to allow continued exposure when reasonable interim protective measures, such as certified water filters, are available now. Saguasa has the authority and the ethical obligation to act in the best interest of residents, especially when vulnerable populations may be disproportionately affected. Public utilities exist to protect people, not to delay action until compelled by regulation. Also, pointing to trace PFAS in bottled water to justify inaction on PFAS coming from our faucets is a false comparison. Faucet water is consumed daily in larger volumes and used for cooking and bathing, creating far greater cumulative exposure. The existence of minimal PFAS elsewhere does not excuse failing to reduce the most direct and controllable source. That argument deflects responsibility rather than protecting public health. Yes, some might see water filters as temporary or provisional or interim resolution. But the water you saw up on that screen right now is reality, permanent for many in our community who must live with its effects every single day. And if that problem is our present reality, then our response must also be rooted in present responsibility. So while it may be called temporary, I submit to you this evening that water filters are not a sign of surrender, they are a sign of stewardship. Temporary does not deny the need for a Band-Aid does not deny the need for surgery, and a filter does not deny the need for long-term infrastructure solutions. A Band-Aid simply acknowledges that while we are working towards healing, we cannot ignore the bleeding. Filters protect our children, our elders, and our families right now, while broader solutions are being planned and pursued. Calling them a Band-Aid should not diminish their value. It should heighten their necessity. They are an immediate safeguard, a compassionate response, and a practical step towards justice for residents who deserve safe water today, not just promises of safety tomorrow. We can and must advocate for permanent solutions, but until those solutions are fully realized, we, all of us, have a moral obligation to reduce harm. Water filters represent care, responsibility, and respect for human dignity. And in that sense, even if they are temporary, they are absolutely essential for the health and safety of our community. I want to acknowledge my belief that Saguasa is acting in good faith and doing all it can with its current authority, particularly with the installation of the new water filter medium. I also believe that ongoing PFAS study is an important and necessary step, and it mirrors continued cooperation between the Saguasa Board and the Executive Director as they work towards the long-term goal of reducing and ultimately removing PFAS from our water system. At the same time, while these long-term solutions are being developed, our residents are seeking reassurance and practical mitigation in the present. For that reason, I respectfully propose that we conduct a water filter survey in Creedmoor, and based on those expressed interests in need of our residents, we also send a formal request asking Saguasa to consider purchasing water filters for those households who indicate they want one or need one. And while the survey begins the process of identifying those in our community who both need and desire water filters, before making my motion, Mr. Mayor, I want to speak from personal conviction. This survey is the first step in this board truly standing in representation about their needs, concerns, and protections of our community concerning water. I believe this responsibility is not only a moral obligation, but a constitutional duty grounded in the oath each of us has sworn. Although this board, aside from our two Saguasa representatives, do not have the legal authority to compel Saguasa to purchase water filters, the letter I have proposed, which is in the agenda, if signed collectively, can begin a necessary change of heart and mind. Its purpose is to persuade the Saguasa Board to stop resisting what the people clearly need, want, and deserve for their public health. Continued resistance to purchasing water filters while our residents remain exposed to PFAS, discolored and foul water, is unreasonable, unacceptable, and I pray will change. So before I make the following motion, let me be clear. Providing water filters has nothing to do with regulatory compliance. Rather, it is necessitated by long-standing and dubious past, including events of 27 past violations prior to 2017. Ongoing water quality issues that some residents continue to experience were part of those violations. Additionally, at a Saguasa meeting, numerous residents have voiced their concerns and strong support for water filters. How many residents share this position is exactly what this survey will determine. And for that reason, I pray it will be unanimously approved by our board. Mr. Mayor, I'll ask you to open it up for discussion. At that point, I will propose my motion.
All right, let's do the motion. Well, open up the discussion for water filter survey and water filters.
And a letter to Saguasa.
And a letter to Saguasa. No discussion?
I'll go, Mr. Mayor.
Commissioner Kozinski?
Mayor Pro Tem, that was a very powerful speech. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm just a little concerned about a few things, and if you could help me understand these things, I would appreciate it. So, for the screen that's on for the image on the screen, Rome and Calhoun, Georgia are the carpet capital of the world. And Monsanto and two other major carpet manufacturing companies were cited for this PFAS, for dumping in the water, and the money that they raised and the settlement that was raised from this lawsuit paid for the water filters for all the citizens in that area. That's the research that I've done on that. And the numbers are outrageous. They were absolutely outrageous. So we had pictures here of discolored water. And PFAS doesn't cause discolored water. So I don't want people to be confused about PFAS fixing discolored water, because it's not gonna. PFAS doesn't discolor the water. And I understand that these are problems. I'm not saying that they're not. But every citizen in Creedmoor is not a Seguasa customer. Mr. Frangos, can you verify that? We do have people in Creedmoor with wells, correct? Every citizen of Creedmoor, every household in Creedmoor is not a Seguasa customer. We have the donut hole people who, there's no mandate that they have to be on Seguasa, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Commissioner.
So that's all I'm saying, is a possibility, that there are people that are not Seguasa. And I just don't understand, for the life of me, throughout all this, not just here, for the last year and a half, why is Butner and STEM and county residents, why are they not complaining? Why do we only have complaints in Creedmoor? Creedmoor is not, we're all getting the same water. It's all coming out of the same plant. But there's nobody in Butner raising this issue for Butner. And I'm trying to understand that, and I don't understand it. This issue has been brought up again and again and again for 2 years, over 2 years that I know of. And there's no outcry from Butner and STEM that I know of. And I've confirmed it with some commissioners in Butner. They have got nothing. I've checked it with Seguasa. They have nothing. So I understand, these pictures are real, I know they're real, we know where these homes are. We don't know why the water was discolored in either one of these situations, and we never will know, because Seguasa never investigated them, because Seguasa wasn't notified at the time, from what I understand. So we will never know why they're discolored. And the other night, we did talk about unidirectional flushing. And I had asked before the meeting to the executive director and said, what have you been doing all along? You've told us for the last year, when we demanded last December that you start flushing the lines. And now you want this unidirectional flushing, which is a more powerful way of flushing. They're starting it in Golden Pond because it's the largest subdivision that Seguasa serves, and it's got the most residents. They may have the most dead-end piping, I don't even know. But that is the way it's going to be. I don't know what neighborhood goes next. He didn't say. I don't believe anybody asked.
He didn't say.
But the final question that I have is, what filters are we asking for? Are we asking for filters that do smell or discoloration? Are we asking for filters for PFAS? Because PFAS doesn't cause smell and discoloration. So I don't understand, what are we asking for? And that's my question. I don't understand, what filters are we looking for? Because they're different from what I've been told from all the research and all the people that I've spoken to, is one filter does one, the other one does the other. They don't both do everything. So that is my question.
May I address her?
Yes. Mayor Pro Tem.
So, Commissioner, on several occasions, you said PFAS doesn't cause discolored water. I didn't say that. On at least 6 occasions, I said, besides PFAS, we also have discolored water and found. I never time you
No,
put
I
it down.
didn't say you
Okay,
said that.
well, you mentioned that. And you also asked why isn't anybody from STEM or Butler complaining? I don't know, but with all due respect, I don't represent them. I represent Creedmoor. And as far as what kind of filters, Seguasa has Hagen Sawyer as an engineering firm. I would leave it up to them to decide what's best. That's what they get paid. Seguasa's engineering firm.
We've got 3. Which one are you talking about?
Whichever one the executive director wants to pick, I will leave that up to them. I'm not an expert there.
Right, but that's what I'm asking is, what do you want Seguasa to filter out? Do you want them to filter out PFAS or coloring?
PFAS is my top priority.
PFAS.
Okay, because it's not specific in the letter either, and that's why I was asking.
That's my top priority.
Commissioner Gleason.
Good question.
To say, other than if there are gonna be a group of motions, I would be definitely asking questions on the motions, but we're gonna start making motions, let's start making motions.
I think.
Commissioner Ross.
Thank you, sir. What I am hoping is that we do not fall into the trap of getting wrapped around the axle tonight on the technical merits pro or con. That's just Darrell talking. Commissioner Kozinski, regarding the well question, there is at least one house that I am personally aware of that's on Fleming Street that is on a well. Harold Jenkins used to live in that house. He's since deceased. And for the longest time, I had a jar of his water on my shelf across the hall. And he actually petitioned, at that time, it wasn't DEQ, it was the Department of Environment and Natural Resources. He petitioned them to not hook up or to disconnect from city water and drill a well, which he did. So that house is on a well. Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. So that I could tell you. The other thing that I wanted to say, and I know I have said this multiple times, but it is just my reality. On August 18th, 2023, I stood right there and addressed this board and asked them not so much for technical stuff, filters or filter media at Seguasa. I asked this board to do one simple thing that would not have cost the city one penny, not anything. And that was to make this notion about working towards and fighting for water quality a top priority for the city of Creedmoor. And when I got in trouble at my very first meeting when I promoted the water quality policy, I said the top priority, and Commissioner Gleason was kind enough to help me kind of work through that. And we hopefully will, at a later date, make it a top priority. It's not going to be the top priority because obviously we have other things to work on. But as I have sat and listened, and I wish I had known what Commissioner Wilkins was going to say tonight. I'm sure many of you will think we have talked and I knew exactly what he was going to say, but I didn't, had no clue. But listening to him, what I heard, I boil it down to this, Commissioner, Mayor Pro Tem Wilkins, and maybe I'll get this wrong, I hope not to, but what you're, in my humble opinion, are trying to get to, you're asking two questions. You gave us a lot of information, you gave us a lot of data, which I greatly appreciate, but I boil it down to two things. You're asking Seguasa, let me do the other one first. Let me talk about Creedmoor. You're asking this board to ask our citizens their feelings about a filter.
Correct.
If they might be interested in a filter. And you're not talking about, at least as I understood it, sir, you're not saying, or do you want it to filter out PFAS, or do you want it to filter out anything else? You're just asking them a very basic and simple question. Are they interested in looking at a filter for their home if they're having issues? So that's the first question. The second question, I believe, goes to Sigwasa, and that question, as I listened, boils down to asking them, in addition to everything else that they are doing, and I think you're right, they are taking some very aggressive steps. I think they are doing that, but in addition to that, with regard to what we are hearing in Creedmoor, as you said, we can't control what happens in Buckner or STEM or anywhere else for that matter, but we can listen to our citizens and we can ask, are they willing to help us help them?
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what it boils down to.
Yes, sir.
And I feel that we are about to get ourselves wrapped around the axle on trying to figure out what does PFAS smell like or what does it taste like. I'm not going to speak for anybody else but me. I'm not qualified to answer that question.
Which is why I said I'll leave it to the engineering firm.
However, what I am qualified to answer, the heavy sigh got me, but that's okay. What I am qualified to answer is, as the Mayor Pro Tem has pointed out, our water does meet, or it's stated that it meets state and federal guidelines. But what I can also say with 100% confidence and accuracy, my water is brown and it has a smell. And I think other citizens have that same experience. And I'm going to close it with this. Again, as I did on August 18th, 2023, when I stood right there, I think this board is missing, or may miss, I shouldn't say, the really big picture. It's what our real opportunity. I used to be a sales guy, and that was sales 101, helping customers understand what their real opportunity is. That was my job. And I believe our real opportunity is to do what Mayor Pro Tem said at the very top of his presentation, is taking initial steps, a step, it's a baby step towards restoring trust in Sigwasa. That's our opportunity. I don't know how this vote's going to go, if we even get that far, but I will continue trying because I think our citizens are worth it, and I am hopeful that this board will be in agreement to at least take a baby step. Let's just ask a question and see where it goes from there. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any more discussion? Mayor Pro Tem?
I make my motion. I move that and this is on the program, Mr. Madam City Clerk, you can pull those out. So I won't read through the entire thing. There you go. I move that the city authorize the distribution of a resident survey to every household within the city limits for the purpose of gauging interest in receiving a certified water filter capable of reducing PFAS in drinking water. That is my motion, Mr. Mayor. First part of it anyway, excuse me.
All right. There's been a motion by Mayor Pro Tem to move the city authorize the distribution of the resident survey to every household for the purpose of gauging interest in receiving a certified water filter capable of reducing PFAS in drinking water.
In the city limits.
In the city limits. Commissioner Gleason?
Does Finance Director or anybody have any idea what it would cost for us to send a survey to all of the, I guess we'd have to find out first who all the ratepayers are in Sigwasa, to send them the survey. Because if you sent me a survey if I didn't have a water filter in my house, and I certainly could afford one, I would say, sure, I want a water filter. So I think if we're gonna do a survey, we should kind of file it down to, which also was brought up in some of the context from, the mayor pro tem, is that if we ask Seguasa to buy water filters for all of the Seguasa users in Creedmoor, I can tell you their answer. I mean, I don't even need to go to the meeting.
We'll let them decide that.
Which is it, again, but we're sending surveys to, then you say that we could supply water filters as a city to people with low and moderate income. So I would imagine if we're gonna do a survey that we may need to use, we would wanna put something in that survey that says something about what's your family's annual income or something. Otherwise, we're getting to a point where if you don't, Archie, I can afford water filters. And if I didn't have any and you sent me a survey, do I want them? I'd say, yeah. So that's my first question. The first question is, what's it gonna cost us to do this survey?
I think the levy normally is roughly, at the moment, about 70%, around 70% survey. Then that depends on
Number of households.
the number of households that we send it to.
Mr. Francos, would you say there's about 2,100?
About 2,000 households.
That's what I thought, yeah. So $1,400, if I did that correctly, I did that correctly. Did that in my head, you don't have to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
$1,400.
Yeah.
$1,400, Mr. Commissioner.
I don't like an answer to the question about sending it to everybody. Again, you may be gonna use it to say, okay, Seguasa, you're gonna buy filters, these are the people that want them. But if Seguasa says no, and now you've got 300 surveys back that say, I want water filters. Now, how do we respond to those people and say, we really can't give you a water filter, but thanks for asking?
I think we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Let's find out the interest in receiving a water filter, then we can address those things.
Commissioner Kucinski?
Kevin, what are our limits on this?
From a legal perspective, I'm not sure that there really are any limits
There's
on
not.
the city conducting a survey or a poll of the city's residents.
No, but what if we start getting, like Commissioner Gleason said, 300 yeses back, and they're not low to moderate income families? We are prohibited by law on some of this.
Well, I mean, I want to take a step back. We really haven't drilled down into the scope of what, I think maybe the simplest way to put this is we don't know what we don't know at this point.
Exactly.
I think what we do know and what we can be very clear about is that when the city's system was sold to Seguasa, and Seguasa kind of took over the statutory authority to operate what was previously the city system, the city kind of delegated or gave up its authority to regulate or conduct improvements or maintenance to the system. So the city can't, one thing, again, in terms of kind of setting a baseline of what I think we do know right now, I think there are very strict limits on the city's authority to conduct maintenance or improvement of the Seguasa infrastructure and system. I think, and I think the School of Government agrees, that there's certainly authority, the city certainly has authority to conduct kind of home improvement programs that are targeted at low to moderate income households within the city jurisdiction. And arguably, the installation of a water filter probably fits within the scope of the type of work that can be done on that program. Again, that's not something that I'm certain about. That's, I think, the position that the school government takes. That's kind of in my general initial legal opinion, without having done exhaustive kind of research into what other sorts of similar programs might be out there, what the kind of the contours of the law is with respect to that type of program. I mean, I don't know, and I guess while we're on the topic of it, I will say, I mean, if the city is comfortable with the expense of conducting a poll, with the understanding that if the sole question is, do you want a water filter? I agree with Commissioner Gleason that probably everybody's going to respond yes, but I think we're going to go through the effort and the expense of conducting the poll. I don't see why the city should be limited to only asking that question. Perhaps the city could send out a broader poll that says, have you experienced this color, smelling water? Have you experienced, this is kind of go on top of my head here, but this might be an opportunity for the city to conduct a broader survey and perhaps provide information to Seguasa that Seguasa would already have. Specific, perhaps, residents, and again, I mean, this is all, of course, limited to who's going to participate in a poll or a response, but this might provide more useful and workable information than just, do you want a filter or not? Obviously, the folks who, presumably, again, I'm rambling here, but tying this back into kind of the main point is, if where ultimately the board goes with this is that we want to conduct a poll and then we want to explore what options are available to the city within the scope of the city's existing legal authority to do something targeted at water quality or to cooperate with Seguasa on a program for both, this might be an opportunity to gather as much information about that as possible. And then if there's a program that involves the provision of water filters, we'll know, okay, there are 2,000 households in Creedmoor that said they want a water filter, but there are only,
700.
Right, X number that have said, that say they have within the last year experienced, discolored or smelly water, or that within the last year they've done a private water quality test that has shown, irregular results, or what, again, I don't want to go off the top of my head here, but that might give the city more information to identify, how big is the problem. If it's a relatively small number of households, then maybe there's more flexibility for the city to do something unilaterally. If it's a bigger problem, then presumably Seguasa would like to know about that.
Yeah.
And that might give the city a little bit more, leverage is not the right word, but there might be a little bit more oomph behind the city's request to partner with Seguasa to put together some sort of program.
Because in essence, it would be reporting to Seguasa issues.
Right. And I think at the very least, Mr. Kaczynski, I think you and I have talked about this in the past. At baseline, this might be an opportunity for the city to provide, kind of information, or at the very least, to do some preliminary outreach to residents to let them know, hey, if you've got questions about what the city's authority is with respect to water quality, what sorts of things we can do, hopefully this is an opportunity then for a resident who receives the poll to say, to call in and say, well, gee, I'd like to understand, maybe there are folks out there who still don't really understand that the city's not operating a water system anymore, and the city, city's hands are tied to some degree legally. And maybe then, once folks better kind of understand how that authority is delegated, we might be able to get more Creedmoor residents to attend Seguasa meetings anyway, I'm stepping out of my role as the city attorney, maybe more into a policy advocate here, and I want to be careful of that. Those are the things that I think might be helpful or useful here within the scope of conducting a poll.
So my question is liability more than anything. If we got 300 back and they said they want water filters, and I don't know how we're going to get information to find out if they're Seguasa customers or not, because I don't know if Seguasa has the legal obligation to share that information with us. We could ask it on the survey, are you a Seguasa customer? That we could do. But I don't want us to get to the point where we ask and they think Molly brought it out to us at the last meeting. I don't want them to get this thing and think we're going to give it to them, and then we don't have the funds to do it, and we ask Seguasa to do it, and they don't get it, and then people are going to say, well, you sent me a survey, and you said you were going to get me a filter, and now you're not going to get me a filter. I don't want us to get to that point. I'm okay with everything else up to this point, But I don't want the citizens of Creedmoor to get mad at Creedmoor and say, well, you sent me a survey and I thought I was getting a new filter.
And that disclaimer could easily be put into the survey.
Right, yes. Stepping back in my shoes
Great
as
point.
the city's attorney, I would certainly say, that's something that I think we would need to make sure is on the survey document or included in, if it becomes an educational thing too, one way or the other, included within the packet of information and survey that's provided. A disclaimer, what the city is doing is conducting kind of an exploratory survey.
Right.
We're trying to gather information. While we are asking whether you would like a water filter or not, we're certainly not guaranteeing that
You're gonna get one.
you're gonna get one or anyone's gonna get one for that matter, but we're trying to gauge. Sure.
And then, Lee, we figured out how much it would cost to mail them out. Are we sending self-addressed stamped envelopes for them to come back? Because now we've doubled the cost.
I didn't say that.
How are they gonna get back to
Well,
us?
if I wanted something, and it just cost me a stamp, I think I'd use a stamp.
It might, for what it's worth, it might all, and again, I think we discussed earlier,
And staff,
internet.
staff is another question.
But I wonder, so maybe this doesn't solve the entire problem, but, maybe what we can do, at least for part of this, is send a letter that says, here's a URL address to an online tool maintained by the city that,
Could do both.
asks these questions.
Do both.
If you can't, if you don't have access to the internet, please stop by City Hall to pick up a copy of the survey.
Well, I would do both, Kevin.
Right, and I want to make sure that it's something that's as broadly accessible as possible, but I think certainly if the city's concerned about the cost of return address envelopes, there may be, again, it's going to be less accessible than including return address envelopes, but there may be ways to.
And Mr. Interim City Manager, do you think you have staff that you could dedicate to this project? Because somebody's gonna have to get these letters and combine them, and unless you're gonna do it, I mean, I don't wanna take it away from you. I mean, if you wanna collect these and create a database for them, and
You wanna answer that, sir, because I'm not gonna answer that question.
Mr. Mayor.
Chief, interim city manager.
Certainly, we can collect the survey, but I think, again, we just work out the details, collecting and passing on the information forward. I think that's something.
Commissioner Walls.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this is what getting wrapped around the axle actually looks like.
It does.
This is what this looks like. It's very frustrating, but this is what it looks like. But anyway, let me go back to what I wanted to say. Kevin, thank you for helping me crystallize in my mind what we actually are doing. You make a great IT salesman, by the way. It's pretty good. Again, as I said, what Commissioner Wilkins is suggesting, and I know we'd like to solve every detail, who's going to buy the stamps, who's going to lick the stamps, who's going to address the envelopes. I know we'd love to answer all of those questions, but we shouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
It's a non-issue.
All right.
What is the issue is what can we do as a board to take, again, and I'll use my other word again, a baby step towards helping provide a path towards restoring trust into the South Grable Water and Sewer Authority.
First thing I started with.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll give you just two things. So I am almost certain Sigwassa has an Excel spreadsheet or some type of spreadsheet with all of our customer data, and they could sort it by street. I don't think that's an issue at all for them to determine who the Sigwassa customers are in Creedmoor. That is not a big deal, not at all. The second thing is not complicated. I can do it.
I didn't say complicated, I said confidential.
It's not confidential.
Okay.
To have a spreadsheet run, if we were releasing it to the public, that would be one thing. But this is an internal discussion about what addresses are in Creedmoor. I think we can do that and not violate any customer privacy issues. I know it's possible. But the other thing I was going to say, in terms of, I'm going to go down the rabbit hole myself a little bit. In fact, in my company, we didn't call them rabbit holes, we called them mink holes, because they felt so good once you got down there, you just wanted to stay. But right now in Creedmoor, this is a live example of what work that's going on to identify low and moderate income families in Creedmoor. There's a program, I think actually stood up here and talked about that at some point. It's the Energy Burden Reduction Program, EBURP for short. And it's underway right now in my community. It's Main Street East, Church Street North, Park Avenue South, over to Pecan Hill. This is a program that is identified, this is a federal funding program running through Gravel County right now, where that program has identified low to moderate income homes where we can help people reduce their energy burden through weatherization projects. I'm in the service area. I don't qualify either. So these are not things that we cannot overcome. We don't have to create the wheel. The model is already out there. So that's it. Thank you.
All right, there's been a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Wilkins. Commissioner Gleason.
I'm willing to fight the vote for the survey, but I'm not willing to vote on it. I'll vote to spend the money to send out the survey, but I would like this board to be able to approve the survey before it's mailed out.
No, that's not my motion. Approve the survey and, I'm sorry, my motion is to approve the survey and then mail it out. $1,400 is a line item that can be moved.
All right. It's been a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Wilkins to move that the city authorize the distribution of a residential survey to every household for the purpose of gauging interest in receiving a certified water filter capable of reducing PFAS in drinking water. All in favor?
Aye.
No.
All opposed?
4-1, I think.
Motion carries 4-1.
Yep.
Who said no?
Oh, 5.
Say no.
Commissioner,
So we're saying,
Commissioner Gleason,
we're gonna send the survey. It's in this packet.
he's gonna look it over.
Right.
So I think just to make sure that I'm understanding, because one of the things I want to make sure, it sounded like maybe there was consensus amongst the board to do kind of an expanded survey,
Yes.
including our U.S. Iguazu.
Yes, this is just a base product.
Those sorts of things. So the kind of the survey language that's included as a template is not,
Not verbatim.
you're not asking the board to approve that language specifically.
Well, then I would vote yes on the motion, because I said I'd go for the.
That's fine. A little more work for you, Kevin.
Yeah.
You don't mind?
Let's do that again.
Okay.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilkins made a motion that we authorize the distribution of a residential survey to every household for the purpose of gauging interest in receiving a certified water filter capable of reducing PFAS in drinking water,
Looked over by the attorney.
to be looked over by the attorney. And board members.
And I think before we vote on, again, getting down around, I'm a lawyer, that's what I do. Is this something that you would like for staff and myself to bring back to perhaps at like the February 3rd meeting?
The actual letter? I would, if that's okay with the mayor.
Questions,
Yeah.
things like that, okay, all right.
I need to, Madam Clerk, do I need to redo that motion again? All right. It's been a motion made by Mayor Pro Tem Wilkins that the city authorize the distribution of a residential survey to every household for the purpose of gauging interest in receiving a certified water filter capable of reducing PFAS in drinking water to be reviewed by the city attorney and the board. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
There's a second part to the separate motion that we send a letter to Board Sequasa, again to be reviewed by the attorney, but again, this is the baseline of the letter. So I make the motion that we also do that.
Make a motion to,
Send a letter to Sequasa upon receipt of those surveys.
okay.
Make that clear. Once we have a number and addresses, et cetera.
been a motion that we send the letters to Seguasa upon the receipt of those surveys to be reviewed by the city attorney and the Creedmoor board. All those in favor?
Aye.
No discussion?
Oh, yes, sorry, Commissioner Kozinski.
I just think we should wait till we get these surveys and see what kind of response we get before we, do this letter. And, I mean, we can make the motion at that time. I mean, there has to be a deadline on these surveys, and then if we don't get a response, I mean, what kind of response are we, if we get three surveys back, is that enough? I just think we need to hold off on the letter part of it till we see what kind of response we get with these surveys. And maybe a deadline on the survey too,
Yeah, so I think that's.
so that we can move faster.
I think that's a good point for the surveys, including some sort of response deadline, so that this isn't hanging out forever. You know, I don't necessarily, not that it matters what I think, but I don't necessarily have a problem with like a conceptual motion saying that after we've received, survey responses and we've had a chance to review them, the board intends to submit, a letter to Seguasa proposing, certain action depending on the result. But I do think it might make sense to wait on the specific content of the letter until the results come back. Because, for example, again, going down a rabbit hole, but if one of the questions we ask is, for a statement about household income, if it becomes clear that all of the folks who are experiencing water quality issues and are members of Seguasa also meet kind of the low to moderate income AMI targets, that may be then something that the city can do, provide water filters or some sort of, mitigation, program might be something that the city could do unilaterally under existing authority. That's just something we don't know until we don't know what we don't know at this point.
So
I think, it might make sense to prepare a response, at least the specifics, to wait to prepare the specifics of a response until we get results back. Again, provided that we impose some sort of deadline on the survey response. So,
what's the suggested deadline, 60 days?
yeah, maybe 90 days.
90, okay.
Folks.
So I'm fine with that. Waiting on the letter.
Mr. Mayor, that was my understanding of Mayor Pro Tem, of the,
Yeah,
as the Mayor Pro
that's what I
Tem's
thought I
motion,
said, but,
was to get the results back,
yeah.
massage the data, figure out what the letter needs to look like
That's what it was.
upon receipt,
Mm-hmm.
and go from there.
Because
Yep.
you might want to change it, and that's,
That's
I don't
right.
want to do it now, and then you
And
got.
I'm glad we talked about, because 90 days sounds good. So we include 90 days.
All right, any more discussion? All right, Mayor Pro Tem Wilkins also made a motion to send these letters to Seguasa upon receipt of these surveys to be reviewed by city attorney and board of commissioners. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries 5-0. All right. Next agenda item. That was good. All right. Moving on to the continuation of the PACE analytical water testing discussion. I think for this, me and Mr. Mike have talked about this. I think we know what we know. I don't think testing every quarter is gonna change too many things that are happening in our water right now. And now we have this $1,400 survey. So maybe my opinion is maybe every half a year or maybe every year. I don't know what you all think about that, but that's just my opinion.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Commissioner Moss?
And I'm just sitting here with all the discussion that we just had on the previous item, maybe I would support discontinuing the test. I think that's what you're leading to. And maybe this survey that we get back may give us some additional data
Mm-hmm.
to kind of base that decision on at some point in the future. That just seems to make sense to me. I'll make that motion. I'll make a motion, sir.
Okay.
And I don't disagree with that, based on our discussion. I think that would be wise, once we get the surveys back, we can determine whether it's 90 days, 30 days, 180 days. I think that's a good idea.
Cool. All right. Commissioner Way, anything?
No, they jumped to it. I was gonna make the motion. I'm gonna let Commissioner Moss have it.
I will.
But I agree with my fellow commissioners on that.
All right. Commissioner Kaczynski?
Oh,
No.
yeah,
No?
I'm not, I
Just
don't
wanna
want to do
check.
more testing.
All right. You good, Commissioner Gleason?
Yes.
All right. All right, make a motion. Go ahead.
We have to have a
I already made
motion.
the motion.
Stop, yeah.
Okay.
To discontinue.
All right. There's been a motion made to discontinue the PACE analytical water testing. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Entertain a motion to close.
Is there a motion to close? Commissioner Way?
Anybody got anything else?
Anybody got anything else?
Making that motion, go ahead, Commissioner.
Oh, you gonna let me have that?
Yeah.
Go for it, brother.
Well, Mr. Mayor, if no one else has anything else for the board tonight, I'll make the motion to adjourn for the evening.
All right, it's been a motion to adjourn for the evening. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? See you all later. Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you, sir. Chief, everybody can leave but you. You gotta stay here.
Oh!
Now, speaking with people, they seem to have been upset over the last test that we did years ago.